my name is Sydney, and in today's video, I'm going to deep dive into my own AMCAS work and activities, highlighting parts of a select few to show how each entry supported my theme in pursuing medicine. Before we begin, I highly suggest you check out my previous work and activities videos since they're more informative with tips and strategies on how you can write yours. But if you're here to reflect and reminisce with me, let's begin. So your girl maxed out on activities. I used all 15 entry spaces, and even of those 15, I consolidated a couple. I'm going to list all my activities categorically. And from that list, I'll mention a few key phrases for funsies and also for sake of brevity. Before we begin, my theme, which served as my framework in writing my work and activity section and my personal statement, was to show my interest in community medicine. Key ideas I wanted each entry to reflect or touch upon were community, advocacy, compassion, interpersonal skills, culture, and empowerment through education. In alphabetical order, for artistic endeavors, I was a Vietnamese culture night actress for 2 years, junior and senior year. I wrote, in finding my voice on Roy's stage, I define what being Vietnamese means to me. Strength in celebrating my roots. Another section, I chose to integrate culture in all endeavors I pursued after. Specifically, this is the one phrase that related to medicine, identifying culturally competent care as a facet to my journey to medicine. For community service, volunteer for medical and clinical involvements, I listed when I was the Vietnamese Community Health Internal Vice President, Health Fair Coordinator, and Volunteer. And this actually constituted one of my most meaningful involvements, which I read the whole description in its totality in my previous video if you wanted to check that out to see what I wrote. For community service volunteering, non-medical or clinical, I listed Miss Vietnam San Diego 2019, which was my second most meaningful involvement. This was actually one of the categories where I consolidated all the volunteer work that I did under this title. But some key phrases from this entry I wrote, competing in this pageant was my means to celebrate culture. I grew confident in my Vietnamese speaking ability and used it to engage with the community. I then proceeded to list my community involvements, and next quote, I became passionate about increasing my skill set to better address the concerns of people I care for with language and cultural perspective, which was my framework in my approach to patient care in community medicine. Lastly, I concluded this with a statement, medicine to me draws tremendous parallels to culture. Where there will be a need, I will work to support it. Now that I think about it, these phrases sound pretty lame out of context, but I'm just mentioning the ones that pulled together why this was relevant or why this related to medicine. Next involvement I listed, I was also a senior center volunteer where I was a food preparer and a dance and stretch instructor. Some of my favorite quotes, these days filled with art, song, and storytelling kept the seniors' minds stimulated and their spirits lifted. Their joys remind me just how human medicine is, that despite there not being a cure at times, there should always be compassion. Anything that touches upon the human side of medicine or anything in the feels always gets me every single time. So that's probably why this is one of my favorite entries. Next, for non-medical volunteering, I also listed when I was a career explorations high school camp counselor for one of the orgs I did in college. So this was my opener. We've all trembled at the classic, what do you want to be when you grow up? Although figuring out a career can be stressful, growing up shouldn't be. I listed all my involvements under the job title that I had. The purpose of this camp. This camp gave low SES students a weekend to explore health careers for professional speakers, suturing clinics, and BLS demonstrations. This sentence in itself showcased who I was working with as well as the goal and purpose. For extracurricular activities, I listed when I was a powerlifting club sport member, which I read the entire descriptions in my previous strategy and writing examples video. The next section was hobbies, and I listed the art for recovery patient pen pal experience that I had. This constituted my last most meaningful involvement, and some key phrases that I really liked that I wrote in this section were, although she, as in my pen pal, presents as an enigma to the researcher's eye, T is a person with a family that worries, a job she struggles to keep due to her illness, and a hope to one day feel okay. Moving right along, I also wrote later, I've redefined what it means to heal, with care transcending the scope of just treating disease. T showed me the power of support in overcoming any ordeal. And so I venture on this path to medicine with a choice to invest in people. I welcome challenges concomitant to medical training and will be of support to any peer, friend, or patient I encounter. The next section was for honors, awards, and recognitions, which I'll include a screenshot right now. Boop! The The next category was leadership, not listed elsewhere. I wrote about when I was the free clinic volunteer program lead, which I read in complete detail in my strategies and examples video. The next leadership role I talked about was when I was my Pre-Health Honor Society's academic director, tutoring program resource manager, and tutor, which was a program that gave free tutoring services to low SES families. I also was a health symposium director as well as my cohort's president. This pre-health organization was something that I joined in the very beginning of my college career, and I participated in something different every single year, so that's why it spans so many different roles and activities. But some key phrases that I wrote about this entry. Oh, and this is what I mean by introducing what the organization is, but not letting that go on and on and on, since the focus of writing these entries should be on you. I opened this with, fostered by service and scholarship, AED, which is the acronym of the organization that I listed above, provided ample opportunities to develop leadership and teamwork ethic, which are two very key qualities in medicine. I then proceeded to list my involvements, job titles, as well as their respective results. I finished this entry description with, most proudly, I mentored and tutored a high school student until his acceptance into UCLA. For paid employment medical clinical, I listed my involvement as an immunology clinical research coordinator. I wrote, as CSC, I honed interpersonal skills in an environment that combines research and customer service. I serve as the phase 2 blah blah blah's clinicals research, working with patients from the moment they find our studies to study completion. I listed my duties as this role, and then in relating this to medicine, I wrote, I contextualize the language and process of research in medicine. I also mentioned when I was a registered behavior technician. My favorite lines from this was my opener. I'll never forget the first time she made eye contact and smiled at me at the sound of her name. I listed the task as well as the outcomes. I closed off this section saying, working with AS changed my thinking to see people first and diagnoses second. For physicians shadowing clinical observations, I mentioned this in my previous video, but this section I bullet pointed. I shadowed 5 different specialties, and let me just put it on the screen now. Boop! For research and lab, I also consolidated this section, which I will now list here. Boop! And my last category was for teaching, tutoring, and teaching assistant. I wrote about when I was a digital health coach for a research study. My favorite lines from this description were, we discuss progress barriers and celebrate milestones together, representative of a physician-patient relationship. Another line I really enjoyed. This program showed me the importance of not only listening to, but also working with my patient to create systems that align and slowly change his or her perceived ideas about health for sustainable success, which I think fits nicely in the whole primary care framework. So yes, that concludes everything I wanted to discuss. I did breeze through a lot of these involvements, but if you wanted to know more context about them, I also talked about these activities extensively in my recent gap year video. As a reminder, this is a space to share stories and encourage one another, not to hyper-focus on stats or comparisons. We all have different reasons, passions, and paths that have led us to medicine, and you should be proud of what you've done, because that doesn't just make you pretty darn amazing, but that makes you, you. If you have any questions or would like to connect with me, please leave a comment below or send me a personal message through my Instagram. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.